is Jim Schaefer. I'm a faculty member at Nebraska Wesleyan in the English department, and I would like to talk about the campus protests during the late 60s and 70s that were an attempt to change American policy in Vietnam. They matter to me because I was involved in them. So this is now 1968, 1969, 1970, when I'm a college student at UNL, and there are a number of demonstrations that attract thousands of students, and there are speakers and people are saying we disagree with the war in Vietnam. We think it's a civil war. We don't think Americans have any interest in this war. We are losing thousands of American service people on a weekly basis at no gain or no advance to anyone. It's a sort of proxy war with the government of Russia and maybe the government of China. It's sort of like a pretend war against them, and it's useless and it's senseless, and we want it to stop. So these protests lasted several years. They culminated in the spring of 1970 with a student strike, where the students at Nebraska said, we're done. We're not going to go to class anymore. We're gonna stop the university. And not that the university is responsible for Vietnam, but this is all we can do. We're college students. This is the only power that we have. And so we're going to stop going to school. This came about because a protest at another school, a university in Ohio called Kent State, had a situation where students were protesting. The college or the university called out the National Guard, and some of the guardsmen panicked and shot and killed 4 students during a demonstration. And so college students all over the country said, that's it. This has got to stop. This is wrong. And so everyone at Nebraska, we had a great big meeting and we agreed to stop going to class. We wouldn't do any more work. Everything stopped. All the classes stopped. And all the students went home. This protest grew all over the country. But Nebraska was one of the first universities to declare a strike. And so, for instance, at that time, there were demonstrations at Wesleyan, but the students didn't go on strike. They continued to go to class through the end of the semester. One thing that made this so personal was that we had a draft in those days, that everyone was called to serve in the military, and if you just joined up, you were going to be sent to Vietnam, and you were going to be put on the front lines. And so for many people it was almost like a death sentence. So that made it pretty serious business. And it meant the minute you left college, you were probably going to be drafted into the military. The draft became more and more and more unpopular. And so people began to think how they could do the draft in a more fair way. So they came up with the lottery system. And they took 365 ping pong balls, and they put a date on each one, and they put them in a bin, and they drew them out one by one. Say they pulled your birthday out, number 1, you're going to get drafted. And this went all the way through the entire calendar. And then the government drafted people in order of their birthday until they'd reached all the people they needed. And I think in my year, they got down to about 150 days of the calendar. And they drafted those people. And if you happen to be lucky enough to be in the bottom half of the calendar, then you weren't drafted. And that was, I remember my number was 178. even though we were protesting, there was sort of a carnival atmosphere to it. You know, you were protesting with your friends, and you were making signs, and people were letting their hair grow as long as they could, and they were wearing tie-dyed shirts and bell-bottom pants and all kinds of sort of crazy costumes that at the time were meant to flaunt the more conventional clothes that people were wearing. And it was, you know, anything you could do in your lifestyle that was meant to challenge the routine.